This video is brought to you by Rove Concepts. So here are the NAT Transmitter monoblock tube amplifiers that I've been using as my reference for the last 2 years. And not only is this one of the most powerful single-ended tube amplifier in the world, but it is simply incredible sounding. Now, right off the bat, the most unusual thing about this amplifier is the tube in it. It has some big fat tubes in it. And these are transmitter tubes, yes, used for radio transmission. And now it's being used for ultra high-end tube amplifiers. How cool is that? Now, the tubes have a lot to do with it, but this amplifier is one of the most powerful single-ended tube amplifiers, outputting pure Class A, 120 watts. And you may think, well, my Class D amplifier or my Class A B amplifier or my solid state Class A amplifier outputs way more than that. Well, hold on for a minute. So single-ended tube amplifiers, largely, they output maybe about 8 watts, 30 watts, right? And this is why a lot of people that love single-ended amplifiers like I do use sensitive speakers, right? At least minimum 90 dB and up. And that's why you see them running horns and single drivers and so on. But this NAT transmitter monoblocks, let me tell you, absolutely no problem in power driving any speaker that I have ever had in here. In fact, in the 2 years I've had owned this monoblock, at no point did I feel like power was an issue. It is able to drive with authority, power, and it never ever clips. Well, at least in my experience. Now hold on though, because I've had this thing for 2 years. It's not all rainbow and sunshine. First of all, it's a extremely, and I mean burn your skin, touch it and burn your skin kind of extreme heat coming out of this thing. And that's to be expected because this is a pure Class A amplifier, and what do you expect with this big fat tube in it, right? In fact, there's a Noctua fan, which is a very silent fan used in computers and so on, inside underneath the tube, and I've never seen it actually turn on or in action, even if it's like boiling hot in here. But for Canadian winters, it's perfectly fine because it actually saves bills for me, right? Don't have to run heat all the time in my room. Jokes aside, point being is that this is a very hot amplifier, and the cage, from my understanding, is supposed to be bought separately, which for me is a little bit of a bummer. Now, talking about buying separately, I actually have the upgraded Amperix tubes in this. And that's what I've been using. So I actually have the stock tubes in the box, and it's never been used. And I don't plan on using it until this one dies. But so far, it's been going strong. And talking about upgrades I've done recently, a short message from the sponsor of today's video, Rove Concepts. So I recently upgraded my standing desk to the Athena standing desk from Rove Concept. First of all, I personally really love the fact that the desk is large enough so that I can fit my 48-inch OLED TV from LG and still have room left over to fit my monoacoustic speakers side by side for near field monitoring for audio. And of course, being a standing desk, it allows me to set to different heights, and that's perfect for me because of my shoulder pain issues from camera work and bending down to solder and stuff like that. And just having a standing desk that allows me to change to different heights and allow me to stand up and continue my work without sitting for long periods of time is really a game changer. You should try it if you haven't tried standing desks before. And last but not the least, I really love how these standing desks look in my room. Rove Concept really makes luxurious, high-end, high-quality, long-lasting furniture. And take it from me, I don't just own a standing desk from them, I own other furnitures from them as well, such as this Truman coffee table that I have in my listening room, that you probably have seen in my videos more than once. Also, they're doing a 15% off on the ebony finish on Memorial Day, so make sure to check that out. And if you were ever in for a luxury, good-looking standing desk, make sure to check out Rove Concept. And believe it or not, these tubes are supposed to last longer than usual for its tube type because they're using only 45% of the output capability of this tube, if I understand it correctly, which is insane, which means that it can get actually even more hot than it is right now, which is actually quite terrifying. But in fact, you can actually turn down to low output, which makes the output of this amplifier to about 30-40 watts. And that obviously allows the output of the tubes to be lowered and helping it used for longer periods of time. So if you're using sensitive speakers, then it makes sense to use low gain. And even at that, you're, 40 watts in single-ended is quite a bit. So 120 watts, I used it mostly at high output because I wanted the full potential. And there is actually a sound difference when you go to the high output because first of all, there is more bass. There's simply more filling bass, more quick, deep, extended bass. And I would say in a single-ended amplifier, I really haven't heard bass like this. And I've owned carry monoblock amplifiers to, crazy convergent audio monoblock amplifiers, and those are not single-ended, but the bass out of these are quite something. These have really extended bass that I've never really heard in a single-ended amplifier before. And one of the reasons why it's able to extend that low in the bass is according to NAT, the transformers in this is custom made by NAT to be able to handle down to 8 Hertz all the way up to like 30 kilohertz or something like that, right? So it's able to take care of the full bandwidth of, sound we can hear. So that's quite impressive for a single-ended amplifier as well. I mean, look at these transformers. They're humongous, absolutely enormous. And, they're almost like the size of the AGD Tempo amplifier back there, just the transformer themselves, which is insane. And that alone was impressive enough for me to buy this. But what impressed me even more was actually, of course, the mid-range and high frequency. Now, is this the most tube-like sounding tube amplifier? No, it's not. It's actually quite clean in the mid-range. The vocals come through very clean. However, it is so spacious and has that, tube mid-range that it's just done right. It's the right balance. It's not too tubey. It's not too modern sounding of a tube mid-range. So it's right in the middle, I would say. And it's really silky, but has really good definition at the same time. And it was uncanny of an experience when, first of all, when we switched to the NAT monoblocks and the soundstage just dropped back. I still remember that first moment of hooking up these monoblocks and falling in love with it. Because the soundstage, when you hook it up, immediately drops back a few feet. And you can hear in a more spacious presentation, more holographic, and that is something that I really haven't experienced with a lot of amplifiers. But not only that, the layering between the instruments from the depth of the soundstage, from the closest instruments to you to the farthest instruments to you, it's very, very exact. So imaging is also a strong point of this monoblock amplifier. Now the high frequency is really what took my heart, right? Because it is simply silky smooth with no fatigue whatsoever. And when I say silky smooth, I mean not veiled like some tube amplifiers are. This is simply just, it has all the definition and information. It is just silky. Even when I pair bright speakers with these monoblocks, somehow the high frequency seems more airy and spacious. In fact, when I review speakers, I really don't go off of putting it with the NAT monoblocks for the most part, because everything sounds good with it. In fact, I had a friend in here, I think it was Thomas in Stereo way back, and he commented how I review anything because everything sounds so good, with the NAT monoblocks. And that's exactly what a lot of my friends say. And for that same reason, I simply cannot review speakers hooked up to the NAT monoblocks because it literally takes the speakers and makes it sound, gazillion times better than it actually is. And it's unrealistic to some extent. And this is almost too good to be true, but it almost, I'm not saying it does, but it almost sounds like it's fixing some speakers that come in here. It's just that good. It's just that good. But again, 2 years, not just rainbow and sunshine. There is a quirk with the NAT monoblocks. When I first got it in, I had a great time. It sounded wonderful. And then one day, I change stuff all the time in my system, right? So one day, it started sounding terrible. So I thought, oh, maybe it's just not a good pairing with the speakers I'm using right now. But turns out it doesn't sound good with the next speaker or the next speaker. And I was like, what's going on? Did it only sound good with that 1 or 2 speaker and that's it? But it turns out what I changed in my system was the pre-amplifier. So yes, the NAT monoblocks are very sensitive to pre-amplifier matching. Now, I got a monoblock tube amplifier. So what's the first thing that comes to my mind? Oh, what would happen if I add a good tube preamplifier to it, right? So I did exactly that. I have some really nice tube preamplifiers in here for review from PS Audio, from A&K, from RX Audio. And when I tried these wonderful tube preamplifiers with the NATs, it simply didn't sound right. And what I mean by that is that it was just sibilant, especially that vocal sibilance range. It was so piercing, the s, t, right? Those sounds were just so piercing that it was just simply not enjoyable. But one day, I hooked up the PS Audio Gold Stellar DAC. It's not even a solo preamplifier, mind you, right? And I used the preamplifier out of it to the NAT monoblocks. And I was like, what? I was like, holy, it was the best I've heard these monoblocks ever sound, right? And when I was reviewing the Ever Solo streamers, like the DMP A8, if you remember my review of that, right? It has a very good preamplifier section. It may not be like ultra high end, but I still hooked up to the NAT monoblocks and that sounded really good. Not as good as the PS Audio Gold Stellar DAC, but it just sounded really good. So preamplifier matching is very, very important. So I actually got to use the PS Audio's Gold Stellar preamplifier. So this is the matching preamplifier to the Stellar Gold preamplifier I was talking about. And I was using the internal preamplifier in this, and really it's really nothing to complain about. It's amazing. But I had to try the matching preamplifier to see if there was any improvements with the NAT monoblocks. And there was. First of all, there was more grippy, more textured, more nuanced bass, and more, I would say more detailed bass. You don't really hear much detail in the bass, but it was more like pronounced. And then the layering in the soundstage was just more cleaner, more distinct. Now, I wouldn't say it's like a huge upgrade from the DAC inside the Gold Stellar. I think that's a really good option if you want to keep the chain minimal. But this is definitely a step up, not a sideways movement or anything like that. Definitely a step up. So I tried to find some consistency to, give you guys recommendations in case you ever get these, right? And it turns out it seems to be low impedance output. And I do have to give OCD Mikey a credit here because he actually sells the NAT monoblocks. So I called him up and I didn't even buy it from him. I live in Canada, so I bought it in Canada. So anyways, I called him up and I said, hey, you played around with NAT monoblocks, quite a bit. So can you tell me something? Can you tell me, what preamplifier makes a good match to the NAT? Like what is the requirements? And he basically said low impedance. So that was an incredible finding because the right preamplifier can really make these a totally different sound from having a wrong preamplifier. It goes from excuse my language, but batshit terrible to batshit amazing. So it's a very big gap. So keep that in mind. Preamplifier matching is very important. Now, in case you might mention, why didn't you get the matching NAT preamplifier? Well, I actually asked OCD Mikey if he can send me one to review and purchase, but it just seems like stock is an issue right now, so I didn't get to try it yet. Now, in fact, well, I have to give another credit to OCD Mikey, even though I did find this out before he told me. He also mentioned how the RCA, is a better option for the NAT monoblocks than XLR, even though it has both, because this is a single-ended unit anyways. So using RCA actually, to me, sounds a lot better than using XLR input on the NAT monoblocks. Now, after these findings, I went back to the speakers, not all of them, because some of them were sent back, but I went back to the speakers that I have in-house that didn't sound so good with the NAT monoblocks, and I've tried like literally every speaker in here. So we're talking like at least 60 pair of speakers. So you can name Bakar, Totem, Kef, list goes on, Polk, ELAC, so on, right? So I've Eclipse, I'm gonna keep going. So anyways, I've tried like 60 different pairs of speakers on the NAT monoblocks in the time I had for the last few months. Let me tell you, it sounds incredible with literally every speaker, as long as you have the correct preamplifier pairing and the RCA input. So that was the two key things.
I get the money and it's right on cue. Keep the duffel bag up inside my coupe. Hold a couple racks, tell them I love you. You wanna be a boss, do it like I do. Yeah. Get that money, I'm a flex.
And after trying with those many speakers, the consistency in the sound quality it provides that I find is that first thing is that with most speakers, the soundstage drops back immediately. So it seems like it's just more spacious. There's more spacious presentation in the sound. And then all the micro details really come alive, but not in a piercing way. Like I said, the high frequency on these, when hooked up to any speaker I have tried, is just silky smooth. Even brighter, even focal speakers I think I have them in the corner over there. It just sounds incredible with every speaker I have tried in almost every way imaginable. Now, it takes high frequencies and makes it smooth and refined to another level of refinement that I've never heard in an amplifier before. But then when you take a warm sounding speaker and hook it up, you would think it might be too much of a good thing together, but then the NAT monoblocks opens up the highs and feels like it's more extended and airy of a presentation. So it doesn't really take away from the overall tonality of the speaker as much, but it really makes the speakers more balanced and more musical. There's no simple way to put it. And that mid-range, right, like I said, it's a fine balance between like a modern sound and a vintage sound, in that it's silky smooth, the vocals are so holographic, everything is holographic, the instruments, everything seems like it's almost an imagery, a hologram in front of me, but it's clean, it's clean. There is a certain kind of clarity in the layering, the imaging. At no point is this a tube amplifier that feels like, one of those tube amplifiers that has holographic imagery and has great, spacious sound, but it's vague. Yeah, you just don't get that with the NAT monoblocks. It's just simply clean. I don't know how to explain it. It's just clean, but also spacious and holographic at the same time. It almost makes my room sound bigger than it really is because of how spacious it sounds. It fills the room and kind of projects into the room like almost audio note gear. So if you experience audio note gear, you might understand what I mean. It fills up the room. I don't know how, it just kind of projects and fills the room. And sometimes when I hook up mostly, solid state amplifiers, some really nice stuff that's quick and fast in the bass and stuff, yeah, it's great. But it's 2D in the soundstage. It's a wall of sound in front of me, not necessarily around me, wrapping around me, filling up the room. But with the NAT monoblocks, that's exactly what it does. It fills up the room and it makes the sound good wherever you are in the room. I mean, there's a good reason I had it for 2 years. And let me tell you something. In the 2 years I've had this, right? I've not contacted NAT. I don't even know NAT. I'm not even sure if NAT knows me or if I have their monoblock because I bought it here secondhand from an ex-client. So anyways, point being, in the 2 years I've had this, right? Every single time I turn it on, it just melts me away. And that is really rare for me. You guys know I switch gear all the time. That's what I do. That's kind of what my job entails. But even when I buy something as a reference, I rarely keep it for more than a year. It's really, really rare for me to keep anything for 2 years without getting bored of it, right? You feel me, you know, for some audio nuts out there. But the NAT monoblocks, every single time I turn it on, every single time I'm amazed. Every single time I'm just like, wow. You know, I think after a year, I started thinking about selling the NAT monoblocks. And then I put the word out there to my friends and so on so that I keep it in the loop. And I was like, hey, and I'm selling the NAT monoblocks. And then I would turn it on and then I'll be like, never mind. Right? Because every single time I'll be like, yeah, I think I'm gonna sell it. It's just, the thing is too heavy. The thing is too hot. You know, I should sell it. Turns it on. Oh God, I can't sell it. And so yeah, this has been literally going on for a year. And how can you not? You know, when you turn it on with whatever speaker I'm reviewing, it's like bass, full extended bass, you know, incredible amount of bass, you know, sheer extension, sheer control in that bass, yet the mid-range, you know, it almost feels like I'm bi-amping with a really good solid state amplifier and a really good tube amplifier, right? And it goes even farther beyond that because of that soundstage ability and imagery at the same time, which is, again, a really hard thing to do for most amplifiers and speakers. You know, it's a balance, right? Soundstage get larger, things gets a bit stretched. It's almost like an image, right? The imagery gets a little bit vague, but this is like it stretches in and deep, but the imageries are very much realistic and intact and, you know, placed correctly, layering upon layering to the side, to the front, filling up the room. Anyways, I can rave about this thing for hours, and I have to my friends. But the point being is, I am finally ready to let these go. Because again, I had a reference system. For those of you that don't know, I'll link a video in the description below talking about my previous end game, you know, reference system. The reason I sold my end game and started to review stuff was because I wanted to experience a wide variety of things to, you know, for the lack of better words, increase my palette understanding of audio. But point aside, I'm selling this. And you may be like, Jay, if it's that good as you say, why would you sell it? Wouldn't you regret it? And I probably will regret it. But you know what my next plan is? Plan is? Yeah. So that's my plan, is hopefully save enough cash to purchase the flagship NAT monoblocks, even with bigger transmitter tubes. Crazy, right? And yeah, I mean, you know, it's very rare for me to extend it that much. Hey, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money. And it's something, you know, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. My car doesn't cost that much. Priorities, right? But this is my priority. This is what I love. And that's what I'm looking forward to save. And with the cash that I will get from the NAT transmitter monoblocks that I have, I hope to save enough, add to it, and then purchase the flagship, you know, one day when I have enough. But that's the dream, that's the plan. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you for sticking around. I'll see you guys on my next video. Make sure to subscribe and like this video. It helps me out a ton. And so thank you in advance, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Until next time.